Mr. Dave Kopel, the research director at the Independence Institute, is with us on the program. Dave, good evening, sir.
Howdy.
Appreciate you coming on the program tonight. I confess now, I mean, it's to the point. I see an international story, and I immediately hit davekopel.org to find out if you've written a law review article about the country in question. And as a matter of fact, I was not disappointed. You've written about Kenya several times before.
I have. It's a sad situation going on there.
It is, and yesterday we saw this story that basically the Kenyan government, at least there's a proposal there from the disarmament organization within the Kenyan government to the Attorney General that individuals caught in illegal possession of a semi-automatic rifle should be executed.
I guess they're serious.
I guess they are. Now, the gun laws in Kenya, Dave, they're not, I guess, is it fair to say they're arbitrary and capricious in terms, I mean, because technically they allow gun ownership as long as you can get a license, right?
Right, and that's also true for bows, except the only people who get licenses are the wealthy and well-connected.
Okay. So the people that they're interested in disarming and the people that they have gone after in these disarmament campaigns, frankly, are not the licensed gun owners to begin with. They're the pastoralists.
Exactly. They're people who ought to get a license and, have the requisite good character and all that kind of stuff, but would never be granted a license under the existing system.
And from what I understand, too, the licensing scheme is cost prohibitive for a lot of these folks.
That's not a bug. That's a feature.
Okay, so you just price it outside of what most Kenyans can afford.
Right, and so then, rich people and their bodyguards and folks like that can defend themselves, and government officials, of course, can with the state-paid security, but ordinary people are not allowed in practice to defend themselves.
Are you surprised to hear that the proposals in the national policy on small arms and light weapons say that anyone found guilty of having, quote, any automatic or semi-automatic self-loading military assault rifle of any caliber will be hanged?
It's a pretty extremist measure, but, compared to some of the other things the Kenyan government does to enforce gun control, it's not out of line. I mean, they go into villages and burn them down, torture people, rape the women, steal all the cattle, and then collect some guns from the ashes of the burned village, and say, "Look, here's our gun control campaign at work. More gun safety for you."
And this is an actual. This is a campaign that has been done periodically over the years in Kenya.
Oh, it's been going on for a long time. They stopped for a while, and then the United Nations incited them to start up again. The United Nations didn't specifically incite them to go burn down villages, but a lot of this has to do with the government trying to assert its control over the pastoral tribes in the north, and so the United Nations disarmament campaigns provided at least a handy pretext. There's one other thing to point out is, this is, if you're sort of listening on the radio and imagining, well, what would I do in a situation like that? Some people might say, well, I guess if it was the death penalty for having a self-loading gun or a full auto, I would just get some other kind of gun. But in practice, those are the AKs are what's available for somebody who's shut out of the legal gun market in Kenya or most of the rest of Africa. Because of all these guns came out of the former Soviet empires, military stocks, and have been put on the black market around the world. If you're a guy who's a pastoralist in Kenya and you want to have a gun to protect your family, the one that you're going to be able to buy will be some kind of AK variant. You might, greatly wish to have a, nice bolt-action gun or something like that, but you can't buy guns in Kenyan gun stores because they'll never give you the permits. So the gun that is available is very likely going to be an AK. So they're basically saying that the death penalty in practice for any case of unlicensed gun possession. And nobody can have a license.
Yeah. And again, this has been, you said that the UN, obviously is not going to stand up and applaud the human rights abuses that have taken place during the disarmament campaigns. But how strongly have they objected, Dave?
Not much. The only thing they ever did good in this regard was during the 2006 big anti-gun conference in New York City, the United Nations Development Program for a while pulled its disarmament funding from Uganda, where the same kind of thing was going on. It got restored later. So they in one country, they did make one somewhat meaningful protest.
That's it, though. Okay.
No, but you got to remember, the United Nations Disarmament Program is, of all the places, the United Nations, it's the most Soros-controlled. The guy who used to run it, a guy named Mark Malloch Brown, is currently on Soros's payroll and had a very close relationship with him for a very long time. Lived in his apartment in a Soros property when he was head of the United Nations Development Program.
Oh, really? Wow. It's a small world, Dave.
If you're George Soros, you're never more than 2 degrees of separation from anybody you want to meet.
So, what if anything? I mean, I know that there's very little that Americans can do here, but it's not like the pastoralist tribes in the northwestern part of Kenya really can contact their local talk radio station or their elected official and try to fight this.
Well, to a degree, American public opinion in contacting elected officials does have some influence. The United States State Department has historically been generally inclined to work with dictatorships, including the one in Kenya, thanks to a recent stolen election, that are cooperative on other matters, and certainly those other matters are important. And I wouldn't say they, I wouldn't try to do the calculus of how you factor human rights into all of this. But when the U.S. Government gets pressure from Americans to say, why are you giving our aid money to this government that's violating human rights, that sometimes does have an effect and may incline U.S. government officials to bring up the issue in their discussions with their foreign counterparts, and sometimes that does help. So we do have some leverage, and Kenya does get a lot of United States foreign aid.
All right. And then, of course, if folks want more information and more background about the disarmament campaigns in Kenya, at davekopel.org, davekopel.com, that's Kopel, in the international section of your website.
Exactly. There's a Right to Arms International section, and then it's organized by country. And I've got 3 articles on Kenya.
All right. Dave, thank you so much, sir, for coming on the program this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Dave Kopel, Research Director at the Independence Institute in Colorado.